All right, guys. So we have the infamous Kendel White, co-founder of K&D Landscaping, the K of K&D, also known as K-Dub around the office. And it's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while. And, you know, it just kind of worked out today. We're here in our new office space. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, Justin. Looking around this office, it is a testament of how far we've come compared to my first office, which is my truck, basically, and probably the living room of our house.
Back at Celia, right?
Back at Celia, before you were born.
Yeah.
You were in the works. You weren't around just yet. And it was your mom. So I would be out doing my thing.
So give the listeners an idea. What's the year? What's going on in the world? You know, where are you? How old are you? Are you married? Are you not married? You know, what's going on?
1986 is when your mom and I got married. 22 years old. Both of us were 22. We went to high school together, graduated the same class, dated in high school.
Right here in Watsonville.
Right here in Watsonville. I was working out at Pajaro Dunes, and they let us use one of their banquet halls for our wedding, which we didn't have much money, so that was huge. And then since I was working in the catering business, that was their wedding gift, was the venue and all the food. So
it's actually a pretty big gift.
That was a pretty big gift. Couldn't say no to that. But we did that, and then at the time, it was, we were actually living with her mom, your grandmother, because of circumstances as they were.
Right.
And she was in transition, moving to Oklahoma. And we ended up buying the house later, but that's another story. So
you bought the house that you were living in with her, though?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
She helped us out a little bit on that, and made it possible for us to get into that, again, by the skin of our teeth, you know. And it seemed like every time I've bought in a house, it's been like just barely doing it, you know. And
same.
It's a lot of stress. I got to make that every month, and that's motivating.
Were there bars on the windows, or is that a memory?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
She lived there by herself for a while, or just her, and then went with your Aunt Sherry.
Yeah, because I remember it's like when I was a kid, I remember this distinct memory of there being this like, hey, if there's ever a fire, here's how you open the bars on your window.
Right.
And I was like, man, that's kind of a little ghetto, but.
Yeah. I mean, not what I would have done, but she was there, you know, kind of a widow by herself.
Right.
And her young daughter, so I get it, you know. I get it.
Before security systems were
before all that.
Now we got Ring cameras, but. Okay, so you got the house, freshly married, working for Pajaro Dunes.
Yes.
And then you we get into landscaping? How did that happen?
Yeah, I was working full-time as a chef and making wages, you know. I was actually in a culinary union, but I remember it was $9 an hour. This is back in the 80s, so, you know, it wasn't bad back then.
It's actually not bad, yeah.
Probably like $25 an hour now, but I saw the executive chef who was my mentor at the time and taught me how to cook. And I saw him working 60 hours a week, and he told me what he was making, which was a lot of money then, but I was thinking, man, that's like, if I start a family and have a mortgage, like and then working on weekends and holidays, and I didn't want to do that. So when I got promoted from being the executive chef's assistant to the head lunch chef at, 23 years old or whatever I was, I went from going to work at noon and getting off at 8 to going to work at 5 in the morning and getting off work at 2 in the afternoon. So that's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Big time. But also it's like, okay, your mom and I decided, you know what, let's have our kids while we're young.
Yeah.
So once they're older and move out, we'll still have our time together afterwards. And, you know, it seemed like a good plan. We're both on the same page with it. And so with that in mind, I thought, you know, I need to earn some extra money after work. And so I bought so this resort I worked at was on the beach. It was Pajaro Dunes, and the trucks and all the equipment got rusted out, and they were selling one of their old maintenance trucks. It was a 78 step-side Chevy, I believe it was, or 77, and there was so much rust on this thing that I could look through the floorboard and see the ground underneath. the general manager, I think he kind of felt sorry for me and he sold it to me for $100. So I got a $100 truck. I had a Sears credit card, so I went down to Sears and bought a handheld blower, a weed eater, and a Craftsman lawnmower. And I was in business. So
Low bar of entry.
low bar of entry, which
So like probably like $500 of 80s money. You had a business.
yeah.
And you're running it out of the house.
Definitely, yeah. And at first it was just mowing lawns and maintaining some yards for some friends of mine people are acquaintances, people I knew. And it was, 2, 3, 4 different properties, like just residential houses.
Do you remember what you would charge a month for that?
Like $60. $60 a month was kind of the going rate, 30 for the front, 30 for the back. And, yeah, that was like the beginning. And after about a few months of doing that, maybe six, 8 months, your mom worked for somebody that lived in an HOA, and they were going to bid out their lawn maintenance for their HOA.
Yeah,
And
perfect.
Yeah, but that was like, oh, you got to get insurance, and didn't need a contractor's license because of the amount, but so I put a bid in on it, which was kind of ridiculous because I had no idea really what I was doing. But
do you remember how you submitted the bid? Was it did you type it out? Did you?
well, yeah, back in those days, it was just real typewriter stuff. And so it was just a 1-page proposal, which, it wasn't like going on, chat right now and say give me a proposal for lawn maintenance. It was had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I turned it in because they had some specifications that we were putting an estimate to, a RFP. And they had kind of a template of what they wanted. So I just used that. And then on the bottom, I just put the price. And what a surprise that I got the job, I think it was $300 a month or something, which, and so then it was okay, and here we go. And so I just started doing all kinds of research about turf maintenance and lawn care and fertilizing. And
what does that look like in the 80s when you say doing research? Because today people think of research differently.
There's a company called Ortho that was printing out books back in those days.
Yeah.
And they had different books for pest and diseases, lawn and lawn care, shrubs and ground cover. And so that was one of the resources I used. And then just anywhere I could find information. And so I went for it. And after work, almost every day after work, I would go mow lawns at this HOA and then my other small little route,
Yeah.
And I did that for about a year. And then that HOA asked me to bid on the entire HOA. So all the ground covers, shrubs, hedges. And there was tons of fast growing shrubs like escallonia.
Yeah.
A lot of trees. And at that point I was like, well, it's not really enough for me to, I got the job, and it's not really enough for me to quit my job. So that's when I hired my brother, Uncle Alan, and Juan Sotelo, part-time. So they would work on it, and then I would come by after work and yell at them and tell them hey, you missed that. And then they started learning about how to treat people because it didn't go over too well when you show up, yelling and screaming out of your trucks.
Especially to your brother.
Yeah, my older brother.
Juan probably at the time, who probably didn't understand much of what you were saying.
No, and vice versa. Yeah. But hard-working people, and so did that for literally another year. And then that management company that managed that HOA had 5 other properties. One was a business park that was still being built, some apartments, and a shopping center. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to bid the whole package out to one company. At that point, and this was in 1989, at that point, I submitted a bid for everything. And of course, I had learned a lot in the last couple of years. And they really liked working with me, and we did good work and everything. And they gave me the whole book of business, as you would say.
Right. So what do you think was some of the things or characteristics that you did in those early years that gave them the confidence in giving you or awarding you that book of business?
I took a lot of pride in what I was doing, and I think that was a lot of it. It was I had high standards, and I always would follow through with what I said I was going to do. They had access to the owner of the company too. You know, they could call me. Although back in those days, it was more of a pager scenario. Like they would send a page, or your mom would if she needed to talk to me, and then I would call in. And I did have one of the first cell phones that was like a briefcase with like the cord and, you know, kept it plugged into my lighter. But I'm not sure. I think that was probably even later than that. But yeah, it was a pager, and then I would go find a phone somewhere and call.
So communication?
Communication, absolutely.
Communication with the owner was probably valuable.
Yeah, and I was out there working on the sites at that point because I had quit my full-time job and went all in at that point.
Okay, I want to come back to that.
Okay, yeah, that was a huge, obviously, leap of faith.
Just to recap for those listening, and this holds so true today. It's so simple. High standards. Do what you say. Communicate.
Answer your phone.
Answer your phone. If you do those three things every day and scale that throughout your company, whether it's 1989 or 2026, it's amazing how easy it is to run a strong and scalable landscape company. Those three things.
Easy in concept. Yeah. Hard work.
Simple, but not easy.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
The principles are simple. If you can do that at scale, that's when that's hard.
So you decide to go all in. You quit your job. What's the discussion look like with you and mom?
Right. It was nerve-wracking, honestly, because it was like, okay, if we do this, then because she was working, but I was going to need her to do the books. You know, if I'm out there trying to hustle work and do the work, and all the equipment, and then just the physical part of doing it, I'm not going to be able to like do all the payroll and insurance and proposals even, because I couldn't type for her to save my life. But she was good at it, you know. That's what she did, and so we did it together. We were in it together, and we feel like it was the only way we could really get ahead, because if working for wages, we know we can only make this much money. Yeah. But this way, you know, it's how much work we put in and how much, you know, how successful we are. And we were very motivated because we knew we wanted to start a family, and I wanted her to be flexible enough and not have to work full time, so she could take care of you and your brother and your sister. And the only way that was going to happen is if we did something different and took that chance to get ahead. So that was the mindset.
It's an entrepreneurial risk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because I think it's really interesting. In your, growing up, being raised here by your mom and dad in Watsonville, where, if any, did this inspiration to be an entrepreneur come from? Because looking at your mom and dad, truck driver, working at AAA, not a lot of entrepreneurism there, but was there somewhere you got inspired to this idea of running your own company?
I think it was just out of pure determination to provide for my family and provide opportunities for my family, and to not be stuck in that 9-to-5 grind that I saw so many people in. But honestly, at the time, it was just like, I need to make some extra money. This is a good way to do it. That led to doing it full time. And then I think the light bulb kind of went off when I made that leap, and we were making it, Mm-hmm. We were doing it. It was a struggle, don't get me wrong. Made a lot of mistakes and didn't have really any capital going into it. So it was all just like sweat and sweat equity, I guess.
Sweat equity.
And so, yeah, I don't know that there was really that like awareness of entrepreneurism. And it was just like trying to make it.
When did you get your first paycheck? How old were you when you started working?
My first job was picking olali berries for my neighbor for 75 cents a crate. And maybe that's something that...
How old? And you were...
I was like 12 or 13,
I interviewed Bob Grover on Monday, and he actually had the same job when he was a kid. That was his first job, was picking berries. Mm-hmm. So interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, and that, like, I wasn't getting paid by the hour, I was getting paid by the performance, the unit. And I think that's a shift of motivation.
Okay, so you're 12, 13, very formidable years in a young man's life. You're getting paid based on the value and performance you provide, not by the hour.
Exactly. Which I'm sure is highly illegal at the time, but whatever, you know.
It worked.
It was summertime. I wasn't going to school. My brothers were old enough to get a work permit, and they were out like with a hoeing weeds for Guy George.
Okay.
In a cabbage patch by South Sepoyta School.
The George is
George,
there.
yeah.
Whole family here.
Yeah. And so I wasn't old enough to go work with them, but my neighbor had a little berry patch, you know, and so I worked for her. Yeah.
So interesting here, right? You think of this compared to today's youth that are graduating college, let's say at 22 or 23 years old, maybe have had some miscellaneous jobs working at Starbucks or something. Maybe they've worked in an intern. But I would say for the most part, people who go to college and graduate from a four-year university don't hold much of an actual job until they graduate. So they're graduating at 22 or 23 years old with a degree and all this schooling, but very little real-world experience. By the time you were 22 or 23, you had been working for 10 years. You were married.
Yeah.
You had bought a house, you had made a decision you're going to start a family, and you started this business. And it's different times, and everyone has a different worldview. But I just think it's really interesting when you compare this. And I bring this up, this college graduates, because most of my friends who have gone to college and those who are graduating now, they're the highest rate of depression, the highest rate of actually unemployment, the highest differential between where they would like to be making money and where they're actually making, and white collar jobs are being replaced faster than we could create them. And so what we're seeing here is these two different tracks, and I think it's just really interesting as I go to start looking to start a family, and I think about the track of the future. And when you compare those two different paths in life, there's a lot of positives and arguments of starting your kids very young, working and getting into the workforce and making money and learning what that's about. So by the time they are 22, 23, they have got 10 years of experience and they're ready to not do the 9-to-5 grind. They're ready to start their business. That wasn't something that your parents had forethought into of like, we're going to get him working at a young age. So what was why'd you start working so young?
I wanted to earn some money so I can put gas in my mini bike, and work on my motorcycle. And like during the summer, so my mom and dad got divorced when I was 11. So, my mom worked full time. My dad, had to move out, and we got to see him on like every other weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of running around doing our own thing, honestly. And it was like I had an opportunity to work and make some money, and we were always working on our bikes and then eventually motorcycles. And so if we wanted parts and gas, I remember gas was 50 cents a gallon back then. We would have to, the money had to come from somewhere. So that was a motivation, it was financial incentives. And every summer I would work and, go to school during the rest of the year. And that definitely gave me the work ethic of what it's like out there. So it's carried me a long ways.
Wow. So let's come back into the timeline. We're in the early 90s now. You've got the book of business. What was the property management company that you won this book of business with, these 4 or 5 accounts?
It was called CDM.
CDM, okay.
Yeah.
And
I think it stood for construction, development, and management. That's what I think.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was their office?
At the time, it was at the Westridge Business Park.
Yeah.
Because that was one of their developments they were working on. Yeah.
How would you get paid? What was the process like?
Well, the maintenance was pretty straightforward. We submitted an invoice and we got paid. Like if say it was January maintenance, we would get paid by February 10th. We would have a check, like clockwork.
Yeah.
And any extras would get, added to that or billed separately. I don't recall exactly how that worked, but it was that steady, like every month, we'd be getting that money, which maintenance, that's what it's all about, right? That recurring revenue.
So tell me about the first, when you started to actually need to hire and have a crew running. What did that look like? And you had a crew in a truck going and running a route.
Right. Yeah. So I take a lot of pride in the equipment in my truck. And so when we finally got to the point where I had Juan and Alan working, I really only had one truck, so they took their own cars and did the thing, and I would come by and we'd load up the stuff. But then once we started doing that route, we all rode together in a truck.
Yeah.
And eventually my brother went, did a different job because he's really tall, as you know, and it was hard on him, like bending over and all. Everything's on the ground, So it was just me and Juan for quite a while, honestly.
Yeah.
And then, I think Eddie maybe was the second employee, or Francisco maybe. I mean, probably, yeah.
I think it was Francisco.
Francisco, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I think, like looking back at it, it was those guys were doing so good. I'm like, well, I need to go fix a sprinkler over here. And so I think originally, like, I would let them take the work truck and I would use, I think it was a personal vehicle, and throw some shovels in it and some parts and go fix a few sprinklers. And then I think it kind of like the light bulb went off. It's like, hey, I can, Juan knows what to do, and I can go over here and make money doing this other thing. So at some point I bought actually it was a second truck from Pajaro Dunes, Rust Bucket 2, and it was a 3/4 ton truck. So we're moving in the right direction. And so I started doing, other little things like sprinklers and maybe plant a few plants, just repairs on our maintenance properties, enhancements. Before enhancements were.
What was your penetration rate? Were you tracking those
much
numbers
as possible?
back then?
Oh yeah. The biggest tracker was, do we have money at the
bank balance accounting?
That's exactly what it was. Yeah. So, we get to go out to dinner tonight. So that was like a mind shift of like, I don't have to be there all the time because I have this guy, Juan, who can do it. And I was like, he was doing such a great job. He's like me. He's like, maybe even more so. Like, he wants all the lines to be straight and everything to be perfect. So I started like branching out a little bit and doing a few other projects. And pretty soon, word of mouth gets out, and we did a little advertising back then. It was in the newspaper and the Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
Which is the Yellow Pages are very expensive. It was like $500 a month to advertise in that thing.
Wow.
Yeah. For a little
that's
ad.
probably like $3,000 today a month when you think about the real numbers.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. And and then it was like, it was a cycle. It was like, I would like get a bunch of jobs. And ultimately I was like building the maintenance during this time too. Cause when those guys were working, I could go out and knock on doors or walk into offices and get more maintenance. Juan was like, yeah, get us more maintenance. I remember him saying that, just keep getting us maintenance. He was really enjoying it. And so pretty soon I had enough, work for a second truck. And so then I would buy another truck and I would get the truck all outfitted how I wanted it, and then it would kind of snowball. And pretty soon it was like, okay, now we need guys doing just irrigation all the time. And, but as you know, like with one guy running everything, you have your limitations on how much you can do.
So let's jump to like 2000, 2002. If you can put yourself back in that time, you're running out of Primrose now. You've got a yard. You've got Francisco running kind of a construction crew. Juan's running a maintenance crew. I don't know if anyone else is on board yet or if you just had those two crews in 2000, but this is 26 years ago. So probably just at the very beginning of Francisco coming on and you having those two crews, my guess.
Yeah, and Eduardo was part of that.
Yeah.
And he really took to the irrigation stuff, so he was learning that, and he like, when somebody likes something, you give them more of it, it's like, all right, you're going to do all the irrigation for this, and they just get better and better. So, then we started actually bidding on commercial work from a set of plans. And again, it was very new to me and made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure of it. Missed things.
What's a job in those early 2000s that really come to mind when you think of commercial installation?
Early 2000s. Well, One of them was a business park in Salinas for it was one of the Creek Bridge developments
I
over
remember
there,
that one.
and it had a bunch of palm trees on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And man, I remember the architect had specified like very specific. You know, it was BTH, brown trunk height.
Yeah.
22 feet, 20 feet, 18 feet, because he was going for this effect, which is awesome.
Right.
And I found this guy in Southern California who was a palm tree broker and got a bid from him, got the job, ordered the trees, and they were the wrong, some of them, they were all bigger than what I ordered. I called them up and I said, hey, we needed a 22 footer and this thing's 24. He's like, oh, just plant it 2 feet deep. I'm like, what? Because usually, you plant it at the crown of the root ball.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you can just bury that thing deep, countersink it, basically. I'm like, what? Are you sure? He's like, trust me, it'll be fine. Then there's another one that had a really small root ball on it. It was like a 15-foot tree with a 5-gallon size root ball.
Oh, jeez.
I what's up with this one? He's like, it'll be fine. If it doesn't make it, I'll replace it.
Yeah.
Okay. So sure enough, I planted those things, and they did fine.
Yeah.
I went and checked one about 3 months later, and it actually shot a root right out of the side of the trunk. And if you think about it, they're on an island or in the desert in the sand, the shifting sands, right? And they compensate for that.
And they're a monocot versus a dicot.
Yeah.
They're basically able to grow in any direction. They only have one shed or one layer of bark on them, basically, and it's not actually bark. So
yeah, they're very resilient.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a big lesson. The other lesson I learned on that job was we were trenching for a sleeve across the parking lot, and we didn't coordinate or communicate very well with the underground team that was doing the drainage and all that stuff, which was Don Chapin Company.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And we were trenching, and we hit their drainage pipe.
Oh.
Which it's that black, it's ribbed on the outside, smooth on the inside. It's called N12.
Yeah.
And we cut a hole in it. What are we gonna do? And so I just cleaned up the damage, and then got another piece from another piece of pipe and patched it and put some screws in it.
Yeah.
Didn't tell them, didn't want to get in trouble.
Right.
And so before they turn those jobs over or get their final payment, they run cameras through all those pipes, I found out. And so they're like, what are these things sticking down? And so they dug it up, and they saw the patch and our pipe right above it. It's like, gee, I wonder who did that.
Yeah.
So they called me up and basically said, we're going to patch this and you're going to pay for it. So I learned what a back charge at that time. So yeah, so I learned that if you screw up and hit somebody else's work or damage somebody else's work on a site like that, you just go talk to them and say, hey, I messed up, I hit your stuff. Maybe we can work something out, or maybe we can help you out somewhere else along the line. And it's amazing when you do that and you have a site with a bunch of good contractors and they all work together. Things get done faster, everybody makes more money, and you get out of there sooner. So that was a huge lesson. It's just own up to it.
Yeah. So mid-2000s, you're getting into commercial work now. Do you remember the year that you hit $1 million in revenue?
I'm guessing it was probably around 2005.
Okay.
Because that was a year, or around that time frame where we did I think we did the government center around that time.
Government center, ton of work in Natividad, right?
Natividad Medical Center, they were just
they're the cash cow.
they were kicking out $100,000 change or purchase orders.
Who was that guy, the main general manager? Forget his name. I remember tagging along with you on that one. I was 2005. I was 16, 15, 16. But I remember that big front entrance with the retaining wall. I did a little sketch for him.
Yeah.
And
where their sign is.
Yeah,
it still stands today. And also the Monterey County Health Department. We did that. That's the year I bought the cabin.
Yeah. And the first time you rolled the excavator, I think.
And the first time I tipped the excavator over.
I still remember that. That sidewalk that you were digging the trench along,
Yeah.
and the track dropped, and then
Yep.
shrink.
Well, that thing was cool because the tracks could retract in, and the idea is you retract in to like go through a gate or something, but then you put them back out.
Yeah.
But when they're in like that and you're digging, it's very unstable, and so when it slipped off the edge, it just kept going.
Yeah.
Same thing at Aptos High School. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but
Two-time world.
I did it 3 times. The other one was on Blackburn Street at a housing authority project, but I know that with 5 strong guys, you could stand that thing back up. So
That's the number.
yeah.
And that, that Monterey County Government Center or Health Department.
Yeah.
That was the project. That was like my first project where you would ask me to go and represent the company in the trailer.
Yep.
And I think I was probably 17 or 18 at the time. I wasn't in school anymore. And Uncle Mike was kind of working it a little bit. And Gary from MPE.
Oh yeah, Gary Haney.
Gary was the general foreman for MPE, and they were doing all the grading and everything. And so I went into the storage or the office trailer where everyone was meeting, and everyone's talking about all this crazy stuff happening in this big building and site work. And
Yes.
I'm just kind of waiting for my turn to speak or answer a question. And they go, oh, what about where's the landscaper? And I was like, oh, I'm right here. And they started asking me all these questions I have no idea the answer to, And so I just kind of like, all right, well, I'll get the answer, and they're kind of mean to me. I remember that. And so I walk out, and I was kind of, disappointed in myself. And Gary kind of puts his hand around my shoulder. He's like, it'll be all right. I go, man, I can't wait till I'm like my dad. I can just drive around to job sites in his truck and not have to do any work. And he kind of chuckles and he goes, look, you're only going to get out what you put in. So if that's your mindset, that you just want to drive around in a truck and tell people what to do and not have to work that hard, you'll never grow a company that's worth anything. But if you want to work hard and, continue to work and put the time in, you'll be able to grow a company that'll be, like MPE. And they were pretty big at the time, probably, 100 employees or so. And so it was a quote that stuck with me today. And I still think about it all the time. It's just, you are only going to get out what you put in. Yeah. And a lot of entrepreneurs I hear, they ask me this is like, how do I set up a business so I don't have to work in it? How do I create a company that I can just not have to be working so hard and I could just kind of take time and go on vacation all the time? And my answer is, well, I mean, that's possible, but how much are you leaving on the table if you don't actually do your full potential? If you don't just put it all in. And I always kind of go back to that quote from Gary, but that was 2006, 2007, and very interesting time at K&D.
Yeah, I was definitely kind of in over my head, and they were like, RFIs and PCOs, and it's like, what is all this stuff?
Lime-treated soil.
Lime-treated soil is hard, yeah.
We still look for that in our contracts. We
right.
still have that excluded from 20 years ago.
What's that smell? Oh, that's the smell of hard dirt, it's lime.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And that's lessons learned along the way, they leave an impression on you, and that's how you remember them so well.
What about the 4-inch pipe and the pressure testing issues at that job?
Yeah, so
was like weeks.
The job itself did not warrant 4-inch pipe, but they were going to expand onto it in the future. So it was all 4-inch main line, and they had an inspector of record out there that was holding us to the pressure test specifications, and it was a nightmare trying to get that thing to pass the pressure test. And we kept patching pipe, cutting in new pipe, redoing everything.
It's like 4 feet deep in clay soil.
It's like
too.
4-inch pipe, yeah.
And, I dug a lot of that up myself.
Most of it we didn't bury before we tested, but some we did. That wasn't a good idea. We'd never had any issues with that before. Maybe never held to the standard, but also it was, I think, the first time we really put in we've done a lot of 4-inch drainage, the 4-inch main line, and then pressurizing it. Do you remember why it wasn't passing?
The glue.
Not the glue, the glue applicator.
Oh yes, the ball was too small.
The dauber, or we should have been using like a brush.
Yeah.
So what would happen is we have to go around that pipe so many times with a small dauber that it left a little ridge each time, and it didn't create a really cohesive a bigger brush is what we ended up going with, and that's what it was.
And it took, I mean, it
cost
must
us
have been
thousands and thousands
weeks.
of dollars. Yeah.
And this IOR was like, if it dropped by more than 5 psi over 24 hours, you immediately failed.
Yeah.
So
there was no slack.
Oh, that was a really interesting job. I learned. I think we all learned a lot, from the lime treated soil to the pressure test to what it means to be a foreman on a job site for me. You know, and going to those weekly meetings every Tuesday and representing and speaking up for yourself. Of, hey, there's base rock in the planter, and we don't accept it. Versus just fucking dig it out. It's not that much work, you know. That's kind of how the landscaper usually gets treated.
Yep.
Or the planters would sit for 3 months because they would grade it so slowly that by the time it got turned over, there was 3-foot weeds in all the planters. Yep. And well, whose responsibility is it to remove the weeds? You know, like the little stuff like that can really. I think there's a lot of people that don't realize how difficult commercial work can be. They go from residential or maintenance and they start bidding these commercial jobs. They underbid it. They don't realize all these little things and they end up losing their ass.
Yeah. How long is our exclusion list and qualifications now on the commercial proposal?
It's got to be 40 items.
I would say so, yeah.
Maybe more, depending on the job. Prevailing wage, public works has a few more bullet points there.
Yeah.
It's like a collection of scars.
There you go.
When I see a proposal from a subcontractor, and I just got one, that has 2 exclusions, I'm like, how long have you been in business? They're like, I just started, you know, like I can tell. That exclusions list is a little short. And I actually sent one of our subs our exclusions list. Maybe I'm hurting ourselves, but it's like, I'd rather see them protected.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't want to see you get burnt on this thing because you didn't exclude this or that, you know, it's kind of.
And if there are sub, the owner's going to expect it to be done. So that puts everybody in a tough spot. So yeah, just get it all out there and make sure everybody's on the same page.
And today it is different. We have AI, we have ChatGPT, landscape intelligence. We have groups like the Disruptors where people can go and ask questions. But I do feel like to some degree that's hurting people because there's so much information and there's so much data. It's like, what do you believe? And so you end up almost not doing anything. It's like an overload. So you end up just like, whatever, I'll just send it out. And so I worry about people these days who are starting businesses. There's so much information.
Yeah.
So many people are trying to tell you, like how many coaches and gurus and courses that are people trying to sell you.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is, and our employees send us proposals to review sometimes, and I know that like they got the verbiage off of Chat, GPT or one of those, Claude, and if you may not have a full understanding of what all those terms mean either, but it sounds really good.
Yeah.
And so you're sending this stuff out without fully understanding what that all means. So there's that side of it too. You're using it, and I use it too because like, it doesn't quite sound right. Let's see what we can do on that and run it through and it's like, oh, that sounds way better. It's saying the same thing, but just in a way more professional way, or just articulating and finding the right words. So instead of like messing around with it and scratching my head for 10 minutes, I just like try. That's when I get a lot of use out of it. That and just like doing quick rendering images, which has gotten to be an amazing selling point. It's like without having to like spend a bunch of time drawing something up or try to like get a design. It's like, let's try just run it through here, and it's like, oh, it could look like that, and it's a game changer when the client looks at it and they get excited.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like you can really get closer to those one call close. Sales meetings where you meet with the client, you show them a picture. They're like, let's do it. What's your budget? 20 grand. All right, let me go back and work that up. I'll send you a contract. And you just designed that number. If they want, if they got a $20,000 budget and they want a retaining wall, don't spec something that's 30 or 40,000. Spec something that's 20 grand. Is it going to have to be wood? Maybe, but at least it's in the budget. I think you said something that a lot of younger contractors are missing today, which is they're putting things into proposals and contracts that they don't understand because it came directly out of AI. And I actually had this happen with the agency we were working with recently. They sent me this thing and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good, but it's kind of off with how they're describing some of this stuff. So I call them and get them on the phone, and within 2 minutes of a phone call, it's like, okay, you have no idea what you sent me. Like, they would rather go back and forth on email because they're able to kind of like respond using AI.
Right.
But when you get someone on the phone, you can see through everything. And I think that's a good reminder for both purchasing people and specifiers and contractors is it's worth a site visit, a phone call, a secondary meeting to make sure what you were sent, whether it's a subcontractor or maybe you're doing a remodel at your house, it's worth a second meeting or a phone call to make sure the person that sent you what they sent you understands it. And it's not just AI.
Yeah. There's nothing like in-person meetings. I had a lead come through last week, and the guy gave me exact square footage, and he said he wanted to take out his turf, put in gopher wire, topsoil, and new sod.
Easy. Yeah.
Like straight, I mean, I could have given him a bid over the phone, but I'm thinking, well, I'm sure he's getting bids from a lot of different contractors. So I'm just going to meet with him and just, see what he's all about. Maybe there's something I'm missing,
Yeah.
So I met with him. I looked at his lawn areas, and the first one's straightforward. It was a rectangle, but he had really old sprinklers. I'm like, you want to swap those out while we're doing it? Yeah, they've been there for 30 years. That's probably not a bad idea. I go, yeah, it'll keep you from digging up your new lawn later. And once you put gopher wire in, you do not want to be messing with your irrigation system. So, all right there we have sprinklers. Then the next lawn was in between basically a circle of trees and liquid amber trees. And I was like, man, he's like, I don't want to mess the roots up. There's a root over here. And I'm like, I bet you there's roots under this entire lawn. And he's like, yeah, you're probably right. And I really love these trees. What do you think we should do? I'm like, well, based on all the site, what I'm looking at is, I don't know if the lawn's the right thing for this area.
Yeah.
And he was a retired guy, him and his wife. They're not out there playing on the grass or anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you think about just eliminating this lawn and just put in some nice native plants and stuff and run some drip irrigation and save you water? And he's like, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because I go, I guarantee you, if we come in here and tear this lawn out, it's going to look like, a murder scene with roots everywhere. He's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Attack. So he was all about that. Ended up talking with the guy for about an hour. Yeah, we'll see. I know he's getting other bids. I know we're not going to be the lowest bid, but I did a quick little rendering for that area. First try. Yeah.
What'd you use for that?
I used Chat.
Chat. Yeah, the new image generator, really good.
All
just
I
as
did
of
was just
a week ago.
I upload the picture of the lawn and create an image of California native planting, and it actually put a flagstone walkway down the middle of it.
Oh, that's
because there was one step. I'm like, well, that looks pretty good. So I just sent that to him with the estimate. We'll see what happens.
So walk me through the timeline of this. The phone call comes into the office, and this is really important. I want to get into it. We're going to go back to the story, guys. Don't worry. We left off in 2007, right when things were at the peak.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, 2007.
So here you are today. You're doing sales, and you're getting a lead. Why would a lead go to Kendel versus residential, commercial, or maintenance? Why is it going to you?
Yes. So each department kind of has its
ICP.
Ideal customer profile. And when the lead comes through and it doesn't fit in any of those boxes, that's when it comes to me. So
you get the scraps, basically.
Yeah. I get the scraps and I put them together and I make a beautiful cake.
A nice $2 to $3 million a year, 65% gross margin cake.
Yeah, nice. The pre-con I was on this morning was for a school. It's a one school district, and they wanted to they had gophers just tearing up their track, and they didn't have a plan. They didn't really know how to approach it, but they know they needed help, and so that's when I went and met with them, found out what their needs were, and they gave me kind of an idea of what their budget is, and I designed and gave him a proposal for something that fit within those parameters, and with a few different back and forth of working through some challenges. And then sometimes it's a small project, sometimes a small project turns into a big project, but we're building relationships and helping people out.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because it goes against some consulting that I've received, and a lot of people will automatically say, no, you need to turn these leads down. if you weren't here, we probably would, because it's just, you only have so much horsepower or so much capacity in a sales team. And you've got to allocate those sales team members into the best possible lanes that they can go and win. And a lot of the jobs you take on require a high level of consulting and decision-making, and variability is on site. You're walking this guy, he was dead set on what he wanted, and you provided some reasoning why maybe that's not the right move and took him in a different direction that ultimately will probably be very beneficial for the client.
Yeah.
And I looked at your close rate. Your close rate averages between 60 and 70%, which is about double. So for every, bid, every 10 bids, you're closing 6 of those. Typically, we're seeing every 10 bids, we close 3 to 4. It's kind of our standard. You're never the low bid. You're getting the scraps. You've got the highest close rate. You have the highest gross margin of anyone in the company. Wow. So, there's some really interesting KPIs that do not align with conventional thinking that you're taking the non-ICPs. So many people, I'm not going to throw any names out there, but a lot of people will say if you filter right and screen correctly, your close rate will be really high and you'll have this great ICP pool. Just in reality, I just don't believe that's exactly how it works. And you're showing it. It's not so much about identifying the perfect client as it is around how you approach the sale. And our sales team, listening to this hopefully, can learn a lot from your process. So I pulled some data coming into this. One of the things that you do better than anyone else at K&D, except Jamie beats you at this, is response to a lead. Man. Jamie's like 7 to 8 minute response. You're like 20 minutes usually or less. And then you have a lot of other team members who are, sometimes hours or days, which we're trying to work on that. But the time in which you respond, and then I've noticed too, when I look at the data in Aspire and I look at the timeline, you are meeting 1, 2, 3 days in from the time they call versus someone who maybe has a little, I don't know, I don't want to make excuses or whatever, but they're taking a week or 2 weeks. Like, hey, the next available I have is 2 weeks from tomorrow. And they're like, okay, I guess so. But you're meeting with them very quickly, and then you're turning these proposals around very quickly, usually within a day. So your sales process is very, very short. How do you go about this? How do you act with such urgency for someone who is in a position where you're kind of like the president, chairman of the board, you don't have to work every day, but you have this urgency? Like, where does that come from?
Well, one thing I do know is that, money loves speed, right? We figured that much out. So I'll get back to them and not to in anybody's defense, but sometimes a client is not even available to meet for 2 weeks. So that does happen.
It does happen. And
some of the projects, like this school, we went back and forth, but I did give them proposal pretty quickly. But by the time I closed it, it took like a month, And that's not unusual for the bigger projects and more complicated stuff.
What's like a big project? Just
like between, 75 and 150 grand.
Cool.
In that range.
Yeah.
That's for me, because I'm not bidding the real big stuff that tend to be a lot more complicated. And that's why I can turn around a lot faster, because the stuff that I do take on, there's usually not a super complex bid with like a bunch of 3 pages of plans. I don't really, that's the whole point. I don't have plans. I meet with people, figure out their needs, and I come up with a plan and give them a price. So I can move through it pretty fast because I've been doing it so long. It's like, oh, I know what I'm going to do here.
Right.
When before it was like I'd have to ask somebody or do some research on materials, or, kind of like think about different things, where now I just this is going to work. And if I don't have the perfect material, I'm always like, this is, an estimate, the final layout or material will be determined.
Yeah.
But I get them a price with the budget, and then, either it's something they want to move forward with and talk about, or they're just no or yes. So it's not the perfect, this is a very complete plan that we're going to do. It's more of hey, here's a budget number. This is what I bid on, but we can change things. And most of the time, we don't really change that much. It's more of what color blocks do you want? Or, we're going to get the plants, but I'm going to have my plant designer meet with you and come up with a planting scheme, So it's just knowing where to plug in the resources to not spend a whole bunch of time getting caught up on the details when, it's a work in progress.
So having some level of vagueness within the proposal, but also having like clear what is going to be expected in the, in the final results.
It's like, this is what I'm pricing, but it can change, and the price may change accordingly, but this is like kind of what you're looking at to get your project done.
This is a really interesting point, because it's kind of showing why the heavy systemized businesses, and I think of those that are platform or private equity backed, they install these rigid systems within businesses that work for 80% of the stuff out there.
Right.
But it wouldn't, like, those systems wouldn't necessarily work for what you do. What you're doing is very much this, this artistic dance with a client, trying to find something. You have absolute freedom to do whatever you think is best. Like, you don't have anyone to report to. Right. You don't have sales like requirements you have to hit. You don't have margins that you have to hit. You have complete flexibility in which to operate in. And I think it's a really cool experiment that we're, running here. Yeah. Is kind of like this out of the current ecosystem of K&D sales process that you operate in. Yeah. And it's impossible to systemize, I think. Oh, yeah. I don't think you could take someone like Rudy, mentor them under you for a year, and then have the same results. Right. I think it would take a decade. Yeah. And then that person would have to have some level of absolute freedom and absolute like control to be able to deliver the results that you deliver, make the promises you promise, and know that you are going to make sure that those things will be delivered on no matter what. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an art of connecting with the client and quickly understanding kind of where they're coming from without asking them a ton of questions, just like a few questions. Yeah. And I don't go into a project with a strategy. I just like meet with them and see where it goes. And I guess just being like doing it for so long, I don't have any anxiety, or I don't feel any pressure about it. It's like I'm there to help them, like, get what they want out of their landscaping, and if they need some guidance, which most of them do, I ratchet that up or down based on that client. Some of them like, this is what we want, this, and we've done our research. You want this, these retaining wall blocks, this type of turf, and these plants. That's usually not the case. And that's why those are the clients I get. Yeah. The ones that don't know what they want, but they know that they want to like make their yard look nice, but they have an idea. But they're not wanting a full-fledged design, because obviously that would go to the design build department. And there's times where after I meet with them, I go, you know what, I think we need to do a full design for this project, and then I'll get them connected with the design department. So I've got all these resources, to work together, and knowing when to hand it off is also important, or knowing when to say, you know what, I think you might be better off with a different contractor, and just being like speaking straight to them.
I've seen that in the group chat on our huddle, or where our leads come in, and I see the conversations go back and forth. When you decline an opportunity, what are some of the reasons why you might say no to an opportunity?
If there's too many elements, like if there's a lot of hardscapes, or they want like a water feature and a fire pit and any kind of a structure, I don't want to, that's not what I want to do. That needs to be engineered and needs to go through our design department. And I think our lead intake system is getting better on like putting those in, and that's a hard job, that's a hard job. And I always tell the Nicole, if you're not sure, just send it to me, and then I'll figure out where it should go.
Yeah, like the master sorter.
Yeah, because it's tough, man. 'Cause like you said, like we have this, all right, if it's this, it goes to that department. If it's this, it goes to that department. But if it's a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, oh yeah, and they need the irrigation system revamped.
So, is that going to Jake over in irrigation now?
Right,
It's difficult as you scale a company to have so many different departments, because if you just have one or two sales people, then you can just say, well, it's either this person or this person. But when you have 15, or we have actually 25 different people in any given month, we'll create a proposal in Aspire. There's 25 different avenues a project can go into. I'm also curious, when you decide, no, this is not a fit for K&D, period, and let's refer them out, or let's maybe, what are some of the indicators during maybe a meeting, a phone call that you're going to pick up on? And, maybe it's just like they're kind of a dick. Or
Oh yeah. Well, the first thing is, and I all the people that do take the leads in, because it's not always just one person, right?
yeah,
Is if they're rude on the phone, I want you to put that in the lead. I want you to add that in there because I need to know about that. If they're gathering bids, that's a classic. We're gathering bids. No,
put that into the AI, search engine.
we're gathering
If
bids.
it says this, auto decline.
Yeah, or if it's just like all concrete work,
Toss it to Willow or something.
Exactly, one of our trusted subcontractors. Yeah. Or if it's too far out of the service area and they have a $20,000 budget, but it's an hour away. I love working in this like bubble of an area that I'm not traveling more than 45 minutes.
Yeah. So you got geography, are they a highly competitive bidding environment? Is it really our scope? Is it landscaping, or is it maybe a subcontractor that let's just not?
Or if there's too many items, like I said, if there's they want a fire pit, a pergola, a water feature, artificial turf, and pavers, and their budget's like $50,000, it's not, there's no way that we're going to do all these things. And so that's when somebody needs to call them and see if they're real, but like, hey, maybe they just don't know.
It's hard.
They just don't know, and that happens. And sometimes I meet with people and it is what they said it was, and I tell them a price range and it's twice of what they thought it was because they haven't had any work done in 20 years, Yeah. So,
or even 10 years.
Or even 10 years.
It's doubled in 10 years.
Yeah, or the last time they did it, it was somebody's brother-in-law that gave them a screaming deal and they didn't know how good of a deal it was, and their expectation is different. So, yeah, it's hard to even like put everything, into a certain box. It's like the mixture of all the things, in a way.
Well, and that selection process helps you get to that high close rate of 60, 70%.
I'd say so, yeah. But I get ghosted a lot.
When you send a proposal out?
Yeah, I get ghosted.
That's frustrated.
I can't get people just to like tell me, go screw yourself. You're way too expensive. It's like I can take it. And I get it. We're not looking to be the cheapest one out there. When people, I will ask them if I'm not sure. Like, so are you basing your award on price or value or quality? What? And if they just say, we're really cash strapped, we're going to go with the lowest bid, it's like, it's going to be a waste of our time because we're never that.
We're going to win zero.
We're rarely that, I should say. There are times it happens.
Yeah, like if we're the only bidder.
Yeah. Or if we're going against, in the case, a job I'm looking at next week from a very trusted associate, that they're getting bids from civil contractors.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like we can compete with that if it's in our wheelhouse of scope.
It's really funny you mentioned that because I've noticed a lot of the other trades are at that hourly, they're pricing at 120, 150 an hour per man. And the landscape industry is stuck in this like $35 to $65 per man hour with like a 5% markup on materials. Like it's so bad. I had a sub on another job give me a bid and they had 15% for profit and overhead. And I go, what are you doing? And then $90 an hour for T&M work. And it was just like, this is like, high-end interior remodeling.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, man, we got to talk about this. I mean, you can give me this price for my house, but
right. Yeah.
We're doing a bunch of work in my house, but it's like, I would love to see everybody at a minimum $150 to $200 an hour, because that allows us to then pay our team members $50 to $100. And for what they're doing, if you're making $200,000 to $300,000 a year as a software technician in the Silicon Valley, well, let's call that like $100 an hour. Why can't the guy operating this amazing piece of equipment with all this overhead and all this expense versus a tech engineer with a computer? Shouldn't we be similar ranges? I think we should. I'm really passionate about the wages, and the way we get to wages is pricing. Yeah. So it is interesting to see other trades like civils pricing their work at a much higher rate. Yeah.
And I think I feel that if I can present our company in a very professional manner when I meet with the clients, and I've been told this, like you were so you made us feel very comfortable working with you, and every question we had, every email we sent, you replied within within a very short period of time with an answer. And we feel like if you're going to be that responsive during the bidding process, then we feel like if we give you the job, you're going to be the same way throughout the project.
Yeah.
But if you take 3 or 4 days to get back to somebody that asks you, like, what happens if we do a exposed aggregate finish instead of a broom finish? How much more will that be? And it takes you 2 or 3 days to respond. It's not going to build a lot of trust and
certainty,
sense of urgency during the project. So communicating from the time you meet with them until they say yes or no is huge.
If I'm a client, I am expecting during the sales process to be the peak level of communication. Once you sign a contract, I believe communication falls a little bit. I think every company does this. Sometimes maybe you get a really great project manager, but the salesperson is going to be peak communication in almost 90% of cases because you're trying to get a job.
Right.
You want to close that client. You want to expose that client to the best experience possible. Mm-hmm. So most clients are thinking this, and if they are not basically experiencing what they feel is a good level of communication, they're like, well, it's only going to get worse.
Right.
So if I'm not happy during the sales process, then I don't even want to see what the build process is going to be. So that's a pattern that I think a lot of clients have picked up on, and you've got to be aware of that. Okay, so let's go back to 2007, right before the big recession, and heavy in commercial, heavy in construction. But before we jump into that, I just want to take a quick thought. Let's take a break. So guys, we're going to actually break this podcast up into 2 parts. So you guys got to hear up to everything in 2007. You got to hear a little bit about what's going on in the world today with Kendel and K&D. We're going to come back right here next week for part 2, where we're going to talk about what happened 2008, draining retirements, second mortgages, all kinds of crazy shit. And we'll bring you up to where we are today for part 2. So come back for next week right here on Trades Talk, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.